This is the Takumi Sen 8 and the Adios Pro 2. And while they're both fast, today we're gonna find out which one is better. It's time to lace up these shoes and take them for a run. Today's workout is 6 times 6 minutes at threshold pace with 1 minute jog recoveries and a total run of 13.40 miles in the Takumi Sen 8. And I did the same exact workout 6 times 6 minutes at threshold in the Adios Pro 2, so I can compare these two shoes head to head. Now, before I give you my thoughts on these shoes and which one is better, I want to go over some disclosures. Both of these shoes I purchased myself. No one sent them to me. No one's paying me to make this video. And no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with those disclosures out of the way, let's talk about the Adios Pro 2 and the Takumi Sen 8. First, let's talk about why this is a good battle. Why did I pick these two shoes to pit head to head? And that's because in a lot of respects, they're very similar shoes. They're both from the same brand. They have similar design cues. They have similar technologies. They both use cellar mesh to provide a race fit for the uppers in the shoes. They fit very snugly, but there's also enough flexibility and movement in the shoes so that it still stays comfortable. And in the midsoles, while they have different stack heights, they're both relying on a lot of the same technology. They both have Lightstrike Pro, which is Adidas's premium racing midsole foam material. It does a great job at both absorbing impact when your foot hits the ground and also providing a really nice spring, a nice bounce back, and to help with some of the springiness of that Lightstrike Pro. Both of these shoes use energy rods, and this year you can actually see the energy rods because of the cutouts that Adidas makes in the arch of each of these shoes. And on the Takumi Sen, there's even a little cutout over here towards the pinky toe. And ultimately, both of these shoes are intended for speed. They are intended for those race days. Adidas talks about the Takumi Sen as being that 5K, 10K road racing shoe. I think that for some people that are very efficient, they might be able to take this all the way up to the half marathon distance, whereas the Adios Pro is also a very fast racing shoe, but it's intended for the marathon distance and has also seen quite a bit of success on the feet of Adidas's sponsored athletes at the half marathon distance as well. So now let's start talking about what sets these two shoes apart and how I'm going to talk about which one of these two shoes is better. Now, I think that that's really going to require a deep dive into some of the specs and the little differences in each of these shoes that makes them very purpose-built for those two kind of categories of races that I just talked about, the 5K, 10K, and the half marathon and full marathon for the Adios Pro 2. So the Adios Pro 2 starts out with a lot more stack height, 39.5 millimeters in the heel. It also has a half carbon plate in the back here. I think it's to provide a little bit more stability for that higher stack height, whereas the Takumi Sen has 33 millimeters of stack height in the heel. So a 6 millimeter difference in height in the heel, which ends up feeling like quite a bit of difference. And from what I can tell, from any research that I've been trying to dig up and from what I could tell from just kind of feeling the shoe, I'm not sure that there's that half carbon fiber plate in the Takumi Sen. I just think it's the energy rods that are working with the Lightstrike Pro in this shoe. The heel drop on these shoes is also different with the Adios Pro 2 with a 10 millimeter heel drop and the Takumi Sen with a 6 millimeter heel drop. And when it comes to those energy rods, those are different too. Now, while Adidas likes to use the same blanket term energy rods for both of these shoes, I do think they're different. That's not what I originally understood when I made my first video about the Takumi Sen. I thought that they were the same energy rods in both of these shoes, perhaps tuned a little bit differently. But what it seems like is that the energy rods that are in the Adios Pro 2 are some sort of carbon infused rods. So it's not a carbon fiber plate, but there's carbon fiber technology some way in the energy energy rods in the Adios Pro 2. And then in the energy rods in the Takumi Sen 8, there's a couple of different ways that people have been describing it. Some people are talking about these energy rods as being TPU. Some places are calling these energy rods as being a glass fiber. In any event, the energy rods provide a rigidity that make it harder to compress the shoe. But when it does get compressed and then you're pushing off, that compression has to release, and that gives you that carbon fiber pop as you're moving forward. But there is a difference. I will say that the energy rods in the Adios Pro 2, I think, are a little bit harder to bend than the energy rods that are in the Takumi Sen 8. And overall, what that leaves me with is the sense that the Adios Pro 2 is just generally a bit more of an assertive shoe. You're like feeling this shoe a little bit more when you are focusing on having clean mechanics as you're going through your marathon paces. You're really feeling a lot of pop from the energy rod, and you're really getting a lot of that bounce from the Lightstrike Pro Together. You're really feeling what the shoe is doing, whether it's working with you or whether it's sometimes not working as well with you if you're getting a little bit sloppy. You get a really strong sense of this shoe pretty much at all times. The Takumi Sen is a lot more different. I definitely still feel the specialness of this Lightstrike Pro. I definitely feel the rigidity of the energy rods that are in the shoe, but overall I just feel like it's a much more nimble shoe. I feel like my feet can turn over much faster. Maybe that has to do with the fact that there is a significant amount of weight difference between these two shoes, even though they're both very lightweight shoes. But I just feel like I'm almost kind of dancing as I'm running along in the Takumi Sen 8, and it really makes me feel like I'm light on my feet as I'm running in the shoe. And it's a really exciting feeling as you're doing those repetitions and you're just kind of like cruising along at what is definitely a bit of an effort to get through on those threshold repetitions. And I would say at that threshold level of effort in between 10K and half marathon pace, I feel like both of these shoes in my mind ultimately feel pretty comparable. I really enjoy doing threshold reps to the extent a person can enjoy doing threshold repeats. I really enjoy doing them in each of these shoes. It's a very fun way to get in a workout. An area where I feel a lot more difference in terms of the performance of these shoes is when I'm doing faster work. So when I'm going even faster than 10K pace, when I'm doing work that's closer to 5K race pace, that's where I feel like the strengths and weaknesses of each of these shoes starts to shine a little bit further. And so the Takumi Sen, I think, is designed for that 5K, 10K speed and effort. And I think that it feels the best at that 5K effort. I feel like the entire shoe seems to be designed around what are the impact forces, what are the angles, what are the things that someone that's running at their 5K effort is going to want. This shoe really delivers. And again, that feeling that you're just kind of like dancing along the pavement as you're doing those repetitions really makes this shoe exhilarating to run in. When I'm running in the Adios Pro 2, don't get me wrong, it's still a fantastic shoe to do your 5K effort repetitions in. It does a great job. But I do start to think that at that higher end of intensity, that this thicker stack height of Lightstrike Pro starts to get just a touch mushy. And I'm really splitting hairs here because I'm talking about two super shoes that do really great at kind of all of these speeds. But I do feel like there's just like a bit of extra mushiness in that Lightstrike Pro that starts to show at the pace and speed that the shoe really isn't designed for. The shoe is designed for that marathon level of effort, which is quite a bit different from when you're doing 5K repeats. Now, if I were to conversely start to take the Takumi Sen on a marathon pace run, which I haven't quite done yet, I don't think I would like it, because even for today's run, I am feeling another difference that doesn't happen during the run, but happens after the run. And that is, I just feel a little bit more beat up when I'm running in the Takumi Sen. Now, while it feels just ideally suited for 5K repeats, if you're doing like 800s or kilometer repeats, either on a track or on the road, I think that this is just going to be absolutely perfect. But when I'm doing the mile repeats or 6 minutes at threshold pace, I do feel like later in the day, just that same day and even in the following couple of days, it takes my body just a little bit longer to kind of recover from the wear and tear of that workout than it does when I'm doing it in the Adios Pro 2. And so that's something that I feel like when you're getting outside of the range of excellence of each of these shoes, it starts to show a little bit. Again, not a huge knock because these shoes still do really well, even outside of their target range of race distances and efforts. But when we're talking about these two shoes and putting them head to head and trying to figure out what's the difference between them, I think that's one of the areas where it starts to become really apparent to me. So with those similarities and with those differences now laid out, it's time to choose a champion. And now this is definitely one of those shoes where like I can easily pick either one depending on which races you like to race. On the other hand, I do think that a lot of people could buy both of these shoes, find different ways to use each one that makes sense, and really enjoy both of them. So I'm not saying you can only just buy one, but I'm also not saying you got to go and buy both of them. They're each really good shoes at what they do, and they're both a lot of fun. But I've made a promise to always pick a winner whenever I do a versus battle. So I'm going to pick a winner now. And today, even though the Takumi Sen is the newness, it's the freshness, it's the one that everyone's talking about, I'm going to go with the Adios Pro 2. When it comes to racing, my favorite races to run are half marathons and marathons. Those are the races that are circled on my calendar. I might hop into a 5K or a 10K here and there, but for the most part, I'm putting in those threshold repeats. I'm putting in marathon miles. And for that, I think the Adios Pro 2 is going to be the champion in this head-to-head battle. So those are my thoughts on the Adios Pro 2 versus the Takumi Sen 8. Let me know your thoughts and what races you like to race so I have a frame of reference in your pick in the comments down below. Or better yet, come by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube and we could talk about it all day long in the chat. I'd love to see you guys there. Before I go, I do want to talk about the charity runner of the week. This week, it's Matthew Busser. He's running the New York City Marathon, and for the 4th time, he's raising money for Team for Kids, which is the New York Roadrunners charity that provides running programming for 125,000 New York City kids and 250,000 kids nationwide. I was happy to donate $100 of my own money to Matthew's fundraising efforts, and I would love it if you would just consider donating even the minimum amount to helping out a fellow runner. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?